Welcome to LollieTasking. I invite you to join me and other amazing and inspiring women discussing our passion, work, discovering our purpose, interesting topics, and how we seem to have it all together. I hope we can motivate you and show you you can do it too, with some planning, a little bit of balance, and a dash of determination. This is LollieTasking. Welcome to another inspiring episode of LollieTasking. I am your host, Dr. Lola, and on today's show, we have with us an amazing woman, Dr. Toyin Falusi of the 10 Minutes with TM File podcast, and also the author of one of the most amazing books I've read in a long time on divorce. It's called The Decade After: Thriving After Divorce. She's an infectious disease physician, director of the Core Hepatitis Clinic, and senior director for HIV services at Cook County Health Department. And she's also an associate professor with over 50 publications of her clinical research. And she's done multiple presentations, up to 80 in both national and international. However, what she's most proud of is raising two well-balanced, smart, and thriving young adult women that are not the statistic. It is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Toyin Falusi to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Lola. Thank you for having me on your show. Excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So before we get chatting with Dr. Falusi, we can't wait to talk to her more in detail about that. Let's balance our mind in 5 minutes. Our topic for today is embracing change. The only thing constant in life is change. But why are we so resistant to change? It could be fear or uncertainty that comes with a new job, technology, serious illness, a loss of a loved one, or a change in life circumstances. The fear of unknown for what we thought was going to be is no longer. So we know change is going to happen. We can either fear and run, deny it and hide, or we can confront it and evolve. Let's choose to confront and evolve, guys, okay? How do we confront and evolve? First, take a moment and understand the situation if it's a positive situation. If you're grieving, also understand the grief. Grieve it. Actually, go through the process of grieving. Don't be in denial. Allow yourself to process it. You process it by reaching out to people that can help you process it, like people that have been in a situation or in other circumstances. Maybe your therapist can help you in the event of grieving a change. During the process, it is important to be introspective and look for things that will allow the change to enable you to grow. Feeling sorry for yourself or blaming yourself or others is very counterproductive. Either you're right or wrong. It's important to look at your part in the situation or contributions in the situation and learn from it. So after you've confronted the situation, let's look for the reason. That's the why. What are we going to learn from this change? If you look hard, there's a spark of flame in the darkness and there's a positive there. Hold on and hang on to that little positive, because the more you flame the fire, the more you flame the spark, the more it will become brighter. According to Jack Canfield, when you find yourself faced with a big change that feels overwhelming or scares you, stop and take the time to imagine the best possible outcome that could result from the change, and then simply choose to believe that you have the capacity to make that vision a reality, because guess what? You do. Mm-hmm. But even before confronting and evolve and focusing on the positive, what was your response to the change? I think this is something important for us to know, that change is always going to happen, and you always have to be prepared to know how you respond to change. You can change your response to them and ensure that the outcomes you experience in your life are as positive as possible. Respond with an attitude of curiosity, optimism, and confidence. You'll find it so much easier to survive and thrive during the change. Life is a journey. If we embrace change, we evolve by learning new things, skills, and qualities that make us the better versions of ourselves and can propel and transform us both personally and professionally. So I leave you with this quote by Les Brown. When life knocks you down, try to land on your back, folks, because if you can look up, you can get up. Let your reason get you back up. If you want to learn actionable tips on how to embrace change, you can visit Dr. Jack Canfield's website for 4 tips to learn how to embrace change. And believe it or not, I just found out Dr. Falusi also has a specific podcast about embracing change as well, which I'll add to the show note. So back to you, Dr. Fallacy. Do you have anything to add to that?
That was excellent. That was such an
Ah,
excellent thing. It
thank
was.
you.
And I love the quote at the end about landing on your back, because when you look up, and that's what, kids are always like, oh, let's go, let's keep going.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, change. You started it off right. It is the one constant thing. That and taxes, right? In the
Yeah.
US. It's
Yep.
and death. Change is going to happen. And you brought it up that, change it can be planned, it can be unplanned, and even when it's a positive thing. I mean,
Mhm.
sometimes going from single to married, going from no
Right.
baby to becoming a parent, going from resident to becoming an attendant. These are things you work for, you pray for, you plan for, and you still have anxiety. And this is a positive thing, because you're
Yeah.
not thinking, what if it doesn't work out? So I love the think of the best case scenario, not focusing on what could go wrong, and
Yeah.
using that time as a time of growth. Like, there's a reason this is happening, and what can I get from that, and how do I grow from that? And figuring out why you have such a panicked reaction to that change. That why are you reacting this
Right.
way?
Yep.
Sorting through that. So the next time because change is, it's constant. it's it's
Hmm.
constant. And sometimes it's planned, many times it's unplanned, sometimes it's thrust upon us, sometimes it's demanded of us, work reorg, those kind of things. But if you actually kind of think about, it's constant, how do I embrace, the best part of that? How do I grow from that? And then learn from that. So the next time something happens, you're like, I've picked up some skills to deal with it this next time. So yeah, I do have, and my podcasts are like short. They're like 10 minutes. Well, some of them are like 12 minutes, but the goal, there's some just
Who's
very quick
counting?
things about records counting. I try and think about things that I've dealt with or
Right.
have come across my way, or things that I struggled with, and and I just kind of share to say, hey, if it helps one person, that's one person that's like, hey, let's talk about this.
Exactly. And that's all it has to help. One person,
One
that seed you
person.
put in one person, it can germinate with other people. So
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
think what you're doing is fantastic. I've listened to a few and I've been like, okay, okay, I get. And they're so short and to the point. I get my little
Because
nugget
we're
and
busy.
right.
We're all busy.
So speaking of change, one of the
Yes.
hardest changes in life is divorce. As a child of divorced parents, you're also divorced. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and how you were able to embrace the change of divorce and thrive?
Yes. So, like you said, it is a major life event. When
Mhm.
you kind of look at those life events, that happen, that get people down, divorce ranks up there with them, and things that affect children in terms of adverse childhood events or those
Uh,
ACEs. Divorce is one of those things. So it is not something to be taken lightly. However, my book, The Decade After Thriving After Divorce, and the little subtext is tips on staying positive and getting better, not better, because
Not
this is a
bitter.
change, not
Mhm.
bitter, right? So how do you do that? And for me, I was married 9 years to my um, college medical school sweetheart, and when the divorce happened, the one thing that was right at the beginning of the forefront of that was, how do we make sure that our kids have the best possible life outcome that they can, and
Mm.
make sure that the divorce does not adversely impact them?
That's them.
Because I knew no one who was divorced. I had, a couple of people I knew at work, maybe, who were going through a divorce, but none of the people I grew up with. My parents were still and are still happily married. They just passed their 50th anniversary. My siblings were, thank
Congratulations.
you. My siblings were married, the ones who were married, and the other ones are married now. My close friends were married. Everyone I knew was married, or they were single, but I didn't know anyone personally who was going through a divorce or had been through a divorce, in terms of someone close
Mhm.
enough. So all I knew were the stats about divorce and what happens to kids of divorce, and the stats for people I saw much later as adults who had not had a very positive experience in their growing up, being
Mhm.
kids of divorced parents. And so that was what I had in my head. And more than my personal hurt of this was a change I wasn't, I mean, I wanted to be happily married till death do us part. That was
Yeah.
my thing. So it wasn't something that I wanted, but it was happening. And my first thing was the kids. And that was my goal and my role about writing the book 12 years later was if I can help someone going through the divorce or past the divorce who has kids,
Right.
that if I've helped one kid, because if those you talked about going through events, if they're not dealt with during that process in the best possible way, the damaging effects down the line are so major, and sometimes they're
Right.
irreparable. So
Right.
I had an example in the book where I talked about, where physicians, you have like major trauma, you have a wound, it could be something
Yeah.
really simple, and how you take care of it in that initial part, how you nurture it, how you make sure it heals right and all that helps in terms of
Right.
what happens with the scars down the line. And as parents, you go through divorce, you're hurting. Sometimes if you don't kind of protect the kids, right, and try and figure out how we can separate our issues as two adults going our separate ways from our role as parents, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter, people get over that initial angst that they have about each other, the all
Right.
that stuff. But in that time, the kids have had so much damage to them. So my goal was, how do I and how do we as co-parents have a positive co-parenting experience for the kids, and at the same time figuring out how to, like, nurture yourself and grow from the experience and try to become better, not bitter,
Right.
because
Right.
it's your life. You have one life to live. So that was
I
the kids. I think
should.
the kids were the forefront. They
Right.
are the forefront. They're my
Exactly.
reason.
Exactly. They're the most important thing. And I think the one good thing was that you were able to, or you and your co-parent were able to like come together and be like, listen, I may not like you. You may be I don't know
Yeah.
if that's your situation or not. I'm just making this up.
Yes,
You
yeah.
may be the worst thing since whatever at this point in time. But there's one thing we do have in common. The positive of this marriage was that we had kids together. So let's continue to make that be the best and not break them out of our own selfishness and bitterness and all that stuff. When I was reading your book, one thing I thought was very interesting was you never ever, maybe I missed it, but I don't think you ever mentioned this word ex-husband.
No.
You always said co-parent.
Co-parent.
And I thought it was so fantastic. And I was like, I see what she's doing there. I catch
Hmm.
that.
That's
I
positive,
love
man.
the fact that, exactly. I love the fact that you focus on what this person is to you.
Correct.
He's your co-parent, not your ex-husband. Society say he's your
Yes.
ex-husband. Fine, whatever, right? But the reason why he's still in your life is that he's your co-parent. And the reason why that's important, I felt, was that it means that he also has a part in parenting
Correct.
your child. He
Correct.
also has influence in your children. This is why he's still around, not because I forgive you. You may have. You know, it's because of your children. And the more you say that, am I getting this right? Did I catch
You are
that?
Lola. You, Dr. Lola Day. Yes, you caught it right.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I wish I could take full credit for that. But
Mhm.
the very first time I went in to see my attorney, right, which is like, I've never had an attorney before. There's just some things during the process. You're like, oh,
Right.
I have an attorney. But again, it was not a contentious divorce. It went by, it was very quick. But the very first time I went to meet her, and she's like, she's like, what? I said, I just want my kids to be okay. I said, I'm such a nerd. I read like everything in the world. And
Right.
it was just like, I said, and she's like, she told me, she said, one of the things that she had gotten from a client she had a couple of years before me was framing the narrative as co-parent, not ex-husband. And I took that. And that's the thing. I love to learn. And
Right.
my ego is non-existent, and it doesn't matter who. It could be a 2-year-old that taught me something on the phone, and I'm like,
Here.
oh my god. People are like, what are you, 12? I'm like, yeah, I'm 12 in a
Yes.
50-year-old body, like
Yes.
literally. That's how excited I get about stuff. But when she said that, some people just say things and it's stuck. And she said, because when you do that, it's co-parenting. As long as the kids are alive, you are their parents.
Right.
And that is a positive, and that is an ongoing, and that is so if you know that this is ongoing, as long as the kids are alive, which you pray that they outlive you, then
Yeah.
you have to figure out how this is going to work
I,
somehow.
sh-
She said because every time you say X, it brings you back to something that didn't happen. It brings you back to something that didn't work. It gives you back. So the reference for the conversation is always about something that ended, something that didn't happen, a dream that died, something that stopped. However, co-parenting is a long-term,
it's positive.
it's positive, and you got to figure out, got to make this
Oh,
work, because these
gotta
kids
make
are
it
like,
work.
when we got divorced, they were 5 and 6. They're 20 and
Wow.
21 now. They're both right there, right there now with him, spring break, having fun.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's you gotta, that's exact. So you caught it. And
Okay.
my attorney, in the first 10 minutes of my consultation with her, was like, this is a tip I learned. And I said, it's a tip I plan to use.
That is a tip we need to pass on. And I think I'm gonna put it on my IG too. Like we need to start having that mindset of co-parent, because a lot of times, and this is not for everybody. A lot of times, I feel like
Correct.
the women are usually the first to think my kids, right? And they do everything to protect their kids and whatever. Sometimes that could be overprotection and not realizing that the dad also has
Has a
influence.
role.
Right, exactly. And then from the dad standpoint, and this is totally being judgmental, from the dad standpoint, a lot of times they're under involved, right? Just I'm not saying every dad is, I don't
Mm-hmm.
want emails, but like a lot of times they're under involved, but if they think of it as a co-parent, it's equal parenting, not one person taking over. Obviously one person is going to do more. You talk
Correct.
a little bit
Correct.
about that in the book.
Correct. And I
But
was correct.
I was gonna say, but it's a good thing that you guys were in it together and you both understood that. How do you advise someone that the person, the co-parent, is not where
Mm-hmm.
they are?
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know?
And so I got to say, even in my case, it wasn't like right off the bat we were like,
Ah,
yes, let's do it. Someone
okay,
has to drive that narrative and
okay,
drive it and model it, because when you're going through a divorce, you're hurting, regardless of who pulled the trigger, regardless of what the initiator was or who was the initiator. Divorce is the death of something that was happening, right? It's the
right,
loss of something that needs to be grieved, that needs to be mourned. There's hurting, there's issues, especially if one person seems to have moved on, they found somebody else, or they seem to be thriving or doing well. So a lot of times, that reaction of, well, now, especially now, majority of the times moms are the residential parents. Moms
right,
usually get, the custody is very rarely is it 50-50. I was a residential parent, so I had most of the time the children were with me. And but we had a co-parenting agreement, which is, at least in the US, you have something on paper, you have a co-parenting agreement. And
right,
then you really just allow as much as the other person, regardless of what the co-parenting agreement says, that person wants to do more, and there's no reason why they're not. So I do put in that there's some parents that are not ready to stay involved in a parent's life, unfortunately, after a divorce. They're divorced from the spouse, and to them, that means walking away from their obligations.
right,
Sometimes that's the case. Sometimes people have reasons why they cannot be around the kids. So sometimes there's issues with mental health, substance use, that make it not a good thing for them to be around. But what I tell, especially, I'm not a guy, but from a woman's end, is if you can really be objective and say, is this person a good parent? Yes.
mm,
Now, forget about, were they a great spouse? Were they this? Did they do this to you? Did they
mm-hmm.
hurt your feelings? Did they trample on your soul? Did they do all that stuff? Did they?
Ah,
Those
yeah.
are a whole list of things that maybe,
Don't project it to your
yes, yes,
kids.
yes, correct. But were they a good parent, and are they a good parent? And then just knowing that there is a reason why that other parent needs to be in the kid's life. For girls and their dads, for even boys and for boys and their dad, there's a reason, there's an influence that they have. So if you're able to put your stuff aside, it's not easy, but to say for the sake of the kids, until they're at least grown and older. And for my daughters, I wanted them to have a positive impression of the opposite sex. I didn't want anything to cloud that based
That's
on
so
mom's
awesome.
experience or what mom said or what mom didn't do, so that they can form their own impressions about stuff as they get older, not based on what they think all men are this or this. And now we use that a lot and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not too late. It's never too late. Some people have gone through the divorce and maybe for 2 or 3 years they've been in the you versus me mode. I'm the super mom. I'm doing everything. And the narrative is the whole world needs to know that I'm the only one. He's not doing anything. Well, if there's a role and this person wants to be involved, or even if they seem like they're under involved and you think you can get them to be involved, it's a lot of it is communication now. If you
Mm-hmm.
guys are not able to communicate, that can happen. And communication initially can be hard face to face. Sometimes on the phone, there's a lot of hanging up, but you can communicate by email, by different ways to say, hey, this is what the kid needs. This is how we come. It's hard, but it's doable. It's
Right.
doable. It's
And
doable.
even if you start with like the emails, then you can move to text, then you can
Correct.
move to phone call, and then maybe
Correct.
in person. If you need to
Correct.
take that time, we talk about embracing the change. If you need to take that time to grieve, grieve, but don't grieve to the point of like now affecting your
The
children for
children.
continuing um your relationship with the co-parent. Look at me using co-parent now. I love it. Okay. So like how I know I mean we all know even no matter how amazing you guys were as co-parent, it would always affect the kids. For
Yes.
good,
Yes.
for bad. There's gonna be
Yes.
some because
It
it's a
does.
it's a
Yes.
change to them, right?
Of course.
Like
Of course.
how what were the things you did to minimize the negative effect on the kids
On the kids.
or promote positive,
To the
because
effect.
you sent me some things that I was like, wow, okay, like for
Yes.
me, growing up, for people that don't know, my parents are divorced too, and there was something in me where I've always been the kind of person that I would focus on the positive. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, yeah, they're divorced. There's this, that's just like you. I'm a nerd, always been a nerd.
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
Proud
okay,
one too.
right, hey, there's the statistics that we're not gonna make it,
Yes.
but guess what? We're three
Mm-hmm.
girls and we're all doing very well.
Yep.
I also commend my mother for part of it. Yep. Go mommy if you're listening to
Yes.
this cryo, because I know you. But I commend my mother for part of it. But what are some of the things you did that can help other people out?
Correct. So you started off with the right. First of all, we all have different defaults in terms of our natural inclination, right? Are we usually outwardly positive, optimistic, right? What's your default setting? I actually have a podcast on that. What is your default setting? Like we
Oh,
all have a default
yeah.
setting, right? Most people are, some people are naturally tend to like on the positive side. Some people are more like always kind of like what's going on. That's like
Mhm.
what's your default setting.
Keeping
So
a
some,
side eye, like, let me
yeah,
look at
like
this.
everything, like why is that person being nice, so but that's it. We all have, but understanding what your default setting is always important. So you seem like you've always been a positive person, always looking at what's kind of the positive outcome of things. That's how I am too, but we kind of expect that every kid's going to be that way right off the bat.
Yeah.
And so the influence of that, whoever that primary parent is, the one who the kids spend the most time with, is so important. So when you talked about kudos to your mom, that's extremely important, because one thing kids feel when a divorce happens is, some would tell you, some won't, is guilt.
Mhm.
Sometimes kids feel guilt, that was it because we were me, was it because we were fighting, was it because, because they don't know, they're just kind of like, in their mind the world is changing, they're moving homes, they're spending time in two different places, all of that stuff. So they feel guilt, and when they then see or hear you guys yelling on the phone, slamming doors, avoiding, so then they're like, oh, clearly. So you're adding to their issue. So one
Right.
couple of things you can do is to allow them to share their feelings, just like you are grieving as an adult. And as an adult, you have other ways of, you have friends, you can go to a therapist, you can do stuff. Allow the kids to share what they're feeling. Don't minimize their grief. Don't say, oh, it's okay, let me buy you stuff. You
No.
can't outbuy stuff. If they need to cry, if they need to stuff. My older daughter used to journal. Oh my gosh, she wrote so many things about the divorce. I mean, I think the whole school, anytime they'd say, what is something you're saying? How do you, I mean, she always wrote, it was very important for her. She wrote a lot.
It
She
was an
won like a
outlet.
poetry she won a poetry slam in like fifth grade, writing something about divorce and stuff. And it was, that was her outlet. So we talk about stuff. We talk about how they're feeling, what they need to do, figure out ways that we can build new traditions, right? So if there are things that we all did together, the four of us, but now it's three, and then there are three when they go over there, figure out new traditions that you can do. Having a lot of times to go through old photos, making new memories, right?
Right.
Excitement about whatever that change is. So one of the things we had to do was downsize. We had this huge, home that was going to be our, we're two physician couple.
Mm-hmm.
Had this huge home that was going to be where we lived, and the grandkids would come, and then we got divorced, and we sold, and each of us bought different places. But in the process of buying my new place, I had the kids, they picked out the colors of their new bedroom. You kind of make them excited about this
So we're
stuff,
part of
have an
it.
impact,
Yeah.
a part of that. One of the other things I did was involve. I kept our nanny, so we had a nanny when we were, and I kept her throughout, and she still, I mean, till they were 14, she was still in the active
Wow.
part. And then right now, the kids came home for Christmas break. They went over and saw her. She still
Oh,
lives in Chicago. They keep in touch with her. They talk to her, but they're both in college. So having some constancy helps them. So things that were constant, they had to move. We had to move homes. They were still in the same. We're still in the same school district, but their nanny was the same. They were involved in kind of getting ready in the new home and choosing colors
mm-hmm.
for their rooms and all that. Letting them express themselves and talk about what's going on, fostering a positive relationship with the other co-parents, reading together. They had little books on dinosaurs, divorce, and different little books that we could read,
Right.
written
That could
comic books
explain
about
it.
that that could explain it. Also, one of the things kids feel anxiety about is spending time with the other parent if that's not the primary residence. But I told my co-parent when they're over there, let them not feel like, oh, they're just there for a little bit. Like they're there
Mm-hmm.
and they have their own space there.
Right.
Especially if your co-parent also has a family, so when they go there, they don't feel like the others.
The
So
other.
just being
Yeah.
really positive, and then spending each time. I had two daughters. I have two daughters. Spending time with each of them separately because they have different interests, different roles, different things that they enjoy. So doing things as a threesome, we call ourselves, but also spending time with each kid separately and just being in tune with their emotions and figuring out, some kids will tell you how they're feeling. Some kids are a little more, withdrawn when something's
Right.
bothering them, but knowing your kids enough to, when they need space, give them space. One of the things I noticed sometimes was when my kids came back from dad's place, for that first hour, they just needed their space. There
Mm.
was always just the transitions, it's hard for
Right.
them. And
Right.
so I learned of like right away, like, hey, this, I noticed, okay. So when they come back, they would go into their room. It took them a little bit, and then we're back, and then they
To
talk about how the
reprocess.
weekend was. You don't want to be peppering them. So what you guys do? Da, da, da. Is that done?
Mm-hmm.
Is that dating? Is it,
Oh my
they
gosh,
don't want to
no.
be the
Yeah.
conduits.
Right.
So those are some of the things, and just making sure they don't feel any guilt about the process, making sure that they have a positive image of themselves, and making sure that if they have any flack from anyone feeling like, oh yeah, your parents are divorced, that you can talk about that, because that does happen
Yeah.
sometimes,
Oh,
that
trust me.
kids don't play dates. All of a sudden, people
Mm-hmm.
don't want them to be at play dates. And so talking about that
I
stuff.
mean,
Yeah.
not even like as I still have this one. It's I mean, just thinking about, I'm like, I cannot believe. So it's funny. Like I was never the child that would talk like, oh, my parents are divorced and da da da.
Yeah.
No, because it didn't matter, right?
Yeah.
Like it was what it was. I always focused on positive. And I remember this particular guy. He was trying to talk to me. He was a
Hmm.
Nigerian guy. This was in
Hmm.
college. And I don't even know how we
How
got
it
to
came up.
divorce or something. And he goes, yeah, I can never marry a girl that the parents are divorced. Girl, wait, that hit me so
Oh, wow.
hard. And it was just
Wow.
like, and I was just like, Hmm, that's interesting. Why do you say that? It was just like, you know what? Like my parents have been together forever. They know what love is. And I just don't feel like they would appreciate it. And it was like, actually, I think it's the opposite. I feel like if your parents have been divorced, like especially if you were raised well, right? Like your parents
Correct.
gave you all the tools you needed, you realize that one, you have to be your own person before you get into this relationship. That's number one. And number two, like
Mm-hmm.
divorce is not easy. You're not going from rosy to rosy. Like there are things that
Mm-hmm.
happen. So if
Mm-hmm.
anything, you may fight harder. you know. So I was like, you need to look at that. And he just kept arguing like all this while I'm like giving up the positive, and you're like bam, bam, bam.
Mm-hmm.
And this is someone trying to talk to me, mind you, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Just so you know, that's not who I ended up marrying, of course, right?
Of
So,
course.
and I was just like, yeah, so do you know my
I'm
parents are
not.
divorced? And he was like, no, shut up. No, they're not. I'm like, he was like, you're just trying to pull my, because I would joke. I'm a jokester too,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm like,
Oh,
no.
girl,
Like,
that's why
I'm
we're getting along. Yeah, I'm a
right.
jokester too.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, my parents are divorced. Then I think I'm well rounded. I was like, no, you're different.
Not
No,
you.
you're
Yeah, not
different.
like I'm not
Not
talking about
you.
you. I'm
Not
talking
you.
about the others.
The other.
No, but that's exactly. But you know what? What the caveat you had there, which was the great part, was a kid of divorce who was raised well, whose parents
Right.
give them the tool.
Mhm.
Because what people, the people that most people have met are people who are still carrying a lot of scar. It doesn't mean our kids don't have things that as kids of divorce that you wish could have been different, but more people run into or know of or have read about or have seen kids who are traumatized, sometimes irreparably by the process. So what
Right.
that guy was saying in his mind was what
Maybe
he'd
he's
heard or
saying
what he knew,
something.
or he
Yeah.
had met somebody who just didn't know how to deal with a relationship or just walked away because they didn't know what that was. But again, that's where that my whole drive around making sure we equip those kids
Exactly.
until they are adults so that they're not coming into adulthood with a self-esteem issues, with confidence issues, because those then are the
Hmm.
reasons why kids of divorce have those statistics. And
Right.
that was where I went to. I went, okay, you know those statistics, but they don't apply to you. Know, we're doctors, right? How do they
Yeah.
apply to you? They're just statistics. But when the first thing I did was read about we're going through a divorce, what happened? I'm looking at these numbers, and I said, wait a minute. So it's like, yeah,
But
kids of
why?
divorce more likely to have like
Right.
teenage pregnancy, drop out of school, self-esteem issues, drug use, all of that stuff, right? And I was like, wait a minute, what is it about that? First
Right.
of all, is it 100% no? Okay, so if it's not 100%, hey girl, we're working on that. Second of
Exactly.
all, if it's what is it that was what were the influences of those things? The parents, right? So the circumstances and all that. So what if the parents can mitigate some of that and figure out those are not things that absolutely have to happen? Well, why can't we do that? Because why do people then have esteem issues and have confidence issues and find solace in substances? Because they're missing something, they're aching for something, they're
Mm.
missing their father, they're missing their mother, depending on who has the primary custody. They're feeling like they can't deal with the trauma. They can't express themselves because no one's
Right.
listening that I'm grieving. So they use substances there. So some of these things are things that we can minimize if right at the time of divorce we put our own hurt aside and
Yep.
say, I will deal with it. I will. And so, in terms of putting the kids first, if every day you wake up, it's like kids first, that allows you to like, you don't want to talk to your co-parent today, but it's
Hmm.
important because that's important. And
Right.
making sure the kids are kids and not your therapist. I put that in the
Mm.
book. They cannot be your therapist. So when you sit in there and dump on them about how horrible their
It's
father
not
is,
even fair on them.
but people don't think they don't think about it. Or you're talking to your
Yeah.
girlfriends on the phone and it's like the kids listen, they
Right.
see stuff, they hear things. That's not good for them. So they cannot be your therapist. They should not be your therapist. Allow them to be kids and put them first. And
Right.
that's how they will thrive.
I totally agree with that. But like, I don't know. I think our culture, we're both Nigerians for people who don't know,
Yes.
but like our culture can be very judgmental.
Oh, there's a
and
there's a
how
There's a whole area of that. There's a
how were
whole
you able, and I'm jumping into it, girl. How were you able to go above the judgmental people for yourself and your kids and teaching your kids that listen, it's gonna happen. Like I'm very, I'm a very pragmatic person. Listen, this is
yep.
gonna happen. So this is how you deal with it. How are you able to teach your kids that just because they say that does not mean it's true, and
Hmm.
this is how you kind of go above the
Yeah.
craziness.
So fortunately, my kids were not around a lot of people who said anything to them. They didn't so at
Okay, for
all
you.
because when a mixed community,
Okay.
and so and in their school they had kids who were they had kids from divorce who were kids of divorce. They had kids who had parents who were separated, and so they were never directly in terms of at least from the whole Niger community.
Right.
For me, I do have a thing in there. It's like, first of all, why is everyone so obsessed with my divorce? Like the
Right.
whole chapter. Now, why do people feel like they have to comment or say stuff? And you hear things. Actually, the stigma around divorce is so high in our culture. You're supposed to just, divorce never happens and people never talk
Mhm.
about it. And I wasn't going around saying, hey, I'm divorced, I'm this, oh yeah, I'm the poster child for divorce. I just kept living my life.
Right.
And you know what? I have authenticity is very important to me. You show up as yourself all the time, never
Mhm.
having to, this in this crowd I have to do this. This is who I am, living my life. And one of the things is there are people who, if people say stuff to you, a lot of it is how you respond. When someone starts to
Right.
have a conversation, no one in any setting did I ever talk about why I got divorced, the reason behind my divorce, and it's nobody's business. It really
Exactly.
was. You shut that down quickly. And so
Right.
if you're in a mixed conversation and people are trying to talk about your divorce and you're talking about what's going on with your life, your children are doing well. So I say the best clap back for anyone trying to get into your business is what you're doing with your life. If you're doing so
Right.
much good, you're doing your own thing, you're growing, you're thriving, how do you even get to like a question on divorce? Then they look
Right.
like they're really dumb when they ask that.
Exactly.
And you shut that down. It's nobody's business because one of the things that people like drama. People like and then you share your stuff. It's
Mhm.
it's fun for them to listen to. The next minute they're on somebody else's business. That does you nothing.
Exactly.
So out
Does
there
you nothing.
slamming your ex, all of that stuff is someone's gossip, but it does you nothing. It doesn't make anybody feel better. So the main thing is you shut that down, you continue to live your life, you ignore those kind of people, and you realize when things are happening, anytime you have change, is when you realize who your core group of people are. It
Mm.
forces you to stop and take stock of what your priorities are. Some
Right.
friendships are done because they never were friendships. Some new friendships form because people that you didn't even know you had a lot, that during that process of divorce become, closer to you. So you just continue. My thing is, you live your life, you share nothing about what's going on. If you need to, you need to, but share
Right.
sparingly. There's
Get
no
a
reason to share.
therapist.
Get a
Don't
therapist,
share it
talk to
with
somebody else,
everybody.
talk to God, because,
Right.
no one that you're talking to is going to be able to help you. And
Yep.
really just live your life. Live your life because that's something that happened. It's not the deal breaker, and you're more than your divorce. And the first page of my book, I define who I am. I said I'm a this, I'm a daughter, I'm a physician, I'm a sister, I'm a friend, I'm a this, I am, and I
Right.
put in there I was a wife. Your
Right.
divorce does not define you. It's something
It's
that
past
happened.
tense. Mhm.
It's past tense, but you're still living your life. You have one
Right.
life and you have the opportunity to grow from this. It may not be what you planned, and you're still a lot of things. Even though you're no longer a wife, you're still a lot of things to a lot of people. You have so much to offer the world as a
Amen.
that doesn't define you. So yes, in our culture, there's a whole but for at least for our audience who are African diaspora, for your audience, there's this Radiant magazine that does for women, African women diaspora, and they had a taboo issue in August of last year. and it was all about things that we don't talk about. You know, eating
Oh,
eating disorders, drug use,
right.
masturbation,
Right.
divorce. So I actually contributed an article on divorce, but it was
Oh,
a whole
nice.
taboo issue
Right. We don't
about
talk
things that
about it.
actually have ways to help. Think about eating disorders, substance use. There are people who are trained and equipped to help, but if you don't talk about it and we pretend nobody has an eating disorder of Nigerian
Right.
descent and no Nigerian ever has a substance use disorder, we're not getting the help that we need,
That we need.
right? Because we don't talk about it. So,
No, I think it's very important that even in everything, like knowing your why, kind of going back to what we talked about
yes.
in the beginning, like knowing
Mm-hmm.
your why, when people start making you feel bad about it or start being nosy posy all up in your grill, just think about your kids. The best
Yep.
revenge you can give anybody is stable children. Like even
Hey.
like looking like looking back at
Yeah.
all the stuff my mom went through growing up, like I just like, oh my gosh, people are so mean and wrong. And, she lost friends. She like it's just
Yes.
we don't even need to get into all her business. But
Mm.
at the end
Because
of the
all her
day,
friends, some of her friends think she's trying to get their man. So they don't want her around. Oh, that's a thing.
oh,
That's a
was
thing.
yes. And people talk about, and there was a reason why she was single. My mom is beautiful. Like she's going on her
Of
70.
course.
And when you see her, you think she's like 40 something. She's
Yep.
gorge, right? But she had three girls and she waited. She didn't,
Yep.
she wasn't with anybody till we all left the house.
Yep.
And she was
Yep.
like, okay, now I can find myself. That
Yep.
was the decision she made for herself because she wanted us to grow up into like thriving
Correct.
women or
Yep.
whatever.
Yeah.
And now each one of us, we're all doing very well. Like,
Yep.
I'm not gonna,
Yeah.
I'm not a millionaire. I'm still working on it. But as far as like a whole person, right? It's not
Yes.
about the money. Like I feel like we're all doing, where each one of my sisters, there's none of
Fulfilling
us
your
that I'm like
purpose.
totally
Yeah.
like worried about. We're all
Correct.
fulfilling our purpose, and
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 more than,
unfortunately there are people who were together and I look at some of their kids, God forgive me, you say don't judge, but I look at some of those people that we're talking, I'm like, whew, thank you for Jesus. And
more than anything else, you brought it up. More than anything else, well adjusted kids who become adults who are fulfilled adults living their purpose. That is the job of any parent, whether or not you're in the same household or not in the same household. That is the ultimate joy of any parent, to raise adults that are like, that know their value, that are
Mhm.
fulfilling their life purpose. I mean, what else is all of this about? What are we? If you choose to have children, and they, not just you choose to, but you're blessed, because I consider parenting a beyond privilege. It is a
Right.
privilege that is afforded to many, but who may not,
Right.
like, it is such a privilege that if you're privileged and blessed to have children, and you can raise well-adjusted children who know their purpose in life, and you can do that even when
Sure.
you're not in your ideal, like, okay, this is what I want. That is what it's all about. And there's a
Exactly.
part in the book I talk about, especially, when he talks about, I mean, I have to at some time just meet your mom and say, hola, I met your daughter. That is what you want to raise. So, because it's, some people may be able to do it and multitask really well in that regard, but when you're actively dating and trying to get remarried, which some people need to right away for a
Oh,
lot of reasons, you got to know
oh,
your
and that's
why.
fine.
It's hard,
Yeah.
and everyone got to know that you have to know your why and live your
Right.
why. But not
Right.
getting married or being in a relationship because your ex got married, or trying to show somebody that this, or try, you got to know your why. And also, one of the things about, especially when you have daughters, or it could be sons also, exposing your children to a revolving door of people is not a good thing for them. It's taking away from your attention from them. But also, these people, there's so much stuff
Mhm.
that happens with divorced kids. Some of that is a lot of abuse. There's a lot of abuse that you see of, by boyfriends of mom, or people mom brings around, that you now meet a 25, 30-year-old woman who seems like, on paper, check, they have the great job, they have all this stuff, and you find out that there were things that happened to them years and years ago because of who mom brought into the picture. That's
Right.
like the worst thing. It's like stuff that, so there's a lot of things that you're thinking about when you're divorced and you're trying to protect your kids and just kind of making sure that you're not, or you're dating, you're breaking up with people, the kids get attached to this person. That's now trauma and trauma and trauma again.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of decisions you have to make for them, really putting a lot of your basic needs sometimes on the
Oh,
lower
I
level.
tell
So
you.
man,
Yeah.
kudos to your mama.
Oh,
That's
we
how it
we
should
were
be
like,
done.
yeah, it's okay. You can go ahead. You
Now
need
we
your
give you
space.
yes.
We give you space now. Oh my gosh. All right. I mean, we could talk forever because there's so
Yes.
much to talk about, but I'm gonna end with one thing. Were you able to balance being a single mother, I know you had a co-parent, but at the end of the day,
Yeah.
they were with you
Yeah. Yeah.
mostly,
Yes.
with being a physician, leader, and educator, and also having time for yourself. Like, how are you able to do it? I mean, they were 5 and 6, and during your 20s, so this is like, well, almost 15 years
15
before they
years.
able.
Yes.
Yeah, so like, how are you able to do that? I can't imagine. Like, I literally call my mom. I'm married with 3 kids, and I feel like I can't do it, right? I literally come out, I was like, I don't know how you did it by yourself with 3 kids. Like, how are you able to do it?
So Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through
He's through
Christ who
Christ who
strengthens me.
strengthens me.
I pray, and then I pray for, I have this WSP thing that I talk about. I pray for wisdom, strength, and peace. That's it every day. Wisdom, strength, and peace. And some days you need all three. Some days you need one more than the other, like
Right.
physical strength, just like strength, emotional strength. Those are some days you just need peace to be able to go to bed and just shut down till the next day. But how is I able to do things? Is ask, praying for strength, but also putting things into place. I'm a list person. I have check boxes, write everything down and check it off. First, I like to check things off because it makes me feel like I accomplished
Yep.
stuff.
Like
I
you've been
break things down into small,
so
medium, large
alive.
tasks, time management. So it really,
Yeah.
like, we all have 24 hours, and I like to have fun. I like to be able to go exercise. So I had to figure out my time management. I got help. I told you I kept my nanny. There were people like, your nanny, you're paying her this much. Even when they went, so her roles kept changing. When they got older and they were in middle school and they didn't need, then she became my housekeeper. So
Mm.
then she became this and did groceries for me. And then stuff. I had my list, I had my priorities, I already had stuff. You realize what's important to you. So a lot of extra stuff, frill stuff, go by the
Right.
wayside. I had help with my nanny. I have a very supportive, get, help, pray for strength,
Okay.
have your list and get your priorities right. And believe it or not, I even, told the kids, I made sure they couldn't be on, they had to choose one activity each quarter.
Yep.
And I said, hey, we can't, if you're paying, and sometimes they ended up on the same team because they played soccer all through. They were in the ice skating. My kids are like
Oh,
super ice
nice.
skaters. When they had shows, they had training, they had the ice skate, they did other things, they had a band and music and chorus and theater, and but it was always kind of like you choose one. Now we lived in a community and we still live in the same community where a lot of things was on site, and so we could do a
Oh,
lot of
okay.
things in the same community. I commute one that, and I had a lot of friends who would have kids in the same stuff. If I was running late from
Okay.
work, they'll pick them up. But again, just letting the kids know too, like, hey, this is what we can or cannot do, so we can have
Right.
time to do some other things. So a lot of it is just, prioritizing stuff and making sure
Mm-hmm.
and using your free time to get things done.
Okay.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, I think it's important because some of us, like, we feel like we can do everything, but we just have to get help. You have to reach out and, I like how you said, your kids are on the same team with other kids and you reach out to that family, do you mind having
yes,
this one while that one is
yes,
doing it?
yes,
So
yes.
no, today it's been such a fantastic, like we could totally talk forever. But I'm pretty sure I will invite you back for other episodes because you're such
Awesome.
a well-rounded person. Like I invite you back
Oh,
for we have the Hydropolitan Health on LollieTasking. I would love to have
Ooh.
you on that. So there are other things. But before we round up, like what are you've mentioned a lot of this in us talking.
Mhm.
As you know, I was asked about the actionable tips for that our listeners can use.
Mhm.
So what is one thing that's helped balance your life?
One thing that has helped balance my life is having my list every day. Having my list and exercising, because
Mhm.
exercise refreshes my physical body, my mind, it calms me down, it keeps me on an endorphin high, and I balance between things that like cardio and things that get me moving. I
Right.
I do weights so I can build my strength, my physical strength,
Okay.
and then I
Okay.
do yoga to kind of bring it all down. So I mix it up, and exercises it, and I make time for exercise. So it's on my list too.
On your list.
So
Wow.
yes, yes.
So would you say exercise balances your mind, your body, and because the next one is mind, or do you have something else that balances your mind?
Mind, I pray and I
Mm.
meditate.
Okay.
Those are things that allow me to you, because there's so much chaos in the world sometimes. It allows you to put things in perspective. I know that there is help. There's
There is help,
always
and
help,
there's a higher
and
being.
that's exactly. So that helps me a lot.
Okay. And renew your body exercise or something else?
Yes, yes. I exercise. I love to exercise, and I'm not one that does a lot of stuff by myself. I do treadmill 5, 10 minutes, I'm done. I get bored.
Mm.
But I love group fitness classes. So I do
Okay.
Zumba, I do Pilates, I do yoga, I do cardio, I do boxing. All of these things are part of group fitness
Hmm.
classes, and I feed off the energy of other people. I love that because there's an instructor. I can't walk out of the class before an hour is done, which a treadmill I'll be done in 15 minutes and like see ya. So you got to know yourself. I admire
Right,
people who
right.
can get on a treadmill and are committed to doing stuff on their own. I know that that's not me. I do SWOT analysis on myself all the time. Not
Mm,
just for people do it for work, and they
right.
do the this and a business stuff. I do it for myself. Girl, what are your strengths? Embrace them, rock them, and not be ashamed of them. If you get complimented at them, be like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, of
that is a strength.
course.
But
Mhm.
also own your weaknesses square, and figure out the weaknesses that you can work on. And that's where you go into developing that. But
Mm,
then when people call you out on that, you already knew it's a weakness. So you're open to the
exactly.
criticism because
Right,
you already knew it. It wasn't a
right.
surprise.
Right,
So
exactly.
I know I cannot exercise by myself, but I love to exercise because it makes me feel good. So I'm part of classes. I'm always in a class. My
Okay.
instructors are like, you're such a nerd, because I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
instructor.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta know what works for you. The big thing
Yes,
is you need exercise. You can't just
yes,
say, "Oh, I run. I don't like to run. That's why I don't exercise." Okay, you don't like to run, so what do you like to do?
to
Just
do.
finding that one
Yes,
thing. So I
yes,
think that's
yes,
actually a very, very good point. Um, so what about renewing your soul? Talked about praying,
yes. That's what I do to renew my soul.
praying and
And to
meditate.
just, yes, praying, meditation, and just, reflection. When you reflect on all the good things that are happening in your life, it's really hard not to have your soul renewed. Every day
Amen.
you wake up, every day you wake up is an opportunity to learn something new.
Focusing on the
That's
positive.
like, it's like, when you do that, it puts in perspective, and that the fact that you woke up another day is, wow,
Hmm.
I get to go
Hmm.
again.
Exactly. Okay.
So,
And then we'll round up a what's your favorite quote? It could be scripture, it could be regular quotes. Or...
well, I already said Philippians 4:13. That's like I can do anything. I really can through Christ who strengthens me. But the other one I really like and I think about all the time is comparison is a thief of joy. Comparison
Comparison, a
is the
thief of
thief
joy,
of all joy.
of all joy. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Interesting.
It
Compare.
really is. And that was Theodore Roosevelt, but it is so true. You can be
Right.
inspired by somebody else, you can be empowered by them, you can get motivation from them. but comparing yourself to other people will the day you start to do that, and I
Right.
tell my kids all the time, that's when, then all of your positive, your list just
You,
falls,
you forget.
crumbles,
Right.
because
You forget who you are.
you
Who you
forget who
are.
you are because,
Yeah, I always talk about the reason why, like some of my friends are like, you and this person, you guys do this. I'm surprised you're not just. I'm like, she's running her race. I'm running my
lane,
race. Like, let's all
lane,
stay in each other's
lane.
lane. Like, the
Right.
and I think it was one of the podcasts I mentioned, and I was like, the day you look at the other person's lane, that you've lost your
You're
race.
behind.
Just
You
focus
have.
on your own race and
Correct.
just get it to the end. So
Just
I
get it
totally
done.
agree with that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! So today's episode was awesome. So we've discussed like. I love the fact that we focus more on children, right? Which is
Mhm.
essentially part of the book. But I
Mhm.
really want people for more tips. I really want people to go and actually get this book. There are other things she
Yes.
talked about. There's
Oh
no way
my
we could
God.
talk about
Growth.
everything on
Personal
there.
growth. Yes. Yes.
Like, oh my goodness, there's so many different things. And I had so much. I didn't even cover like 1/10 of the questions I had. And I was like, whoa,
Oh,
look at the
I'm
time.
sorry. I'm a talker.
No, I love it. I love it. I love it. I mean, everything you said made sense.
Thank
Quality,
you. Thank
not
you.
quantity, good
Thank
quality.
you, Jare. I have a podcast on that. Quality over quantity.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. In case you haven't gotten the hint for like the 10th time, as soon as you're done listening to this podcast, just go over to your Apple podcast and search 10 minutes with TM file. It's told, just search it. She has a nice, beautiful flower covering on there. Just subscribe. Hey! Just subscribe on it and listen to. She has so much on it, and it's 10 minutes. So like, I think what I've done in the past is like I'll be driving and you'll just kind of go, and I could like listen to like four in a row or something, and it just when it's time again, it just go back in. You could like look through the topics and listen to whichever ones interest you or any other ones we've talked about on the podcast. And in addition to that, like definitely get the book. Where can where can people get in touch with you, and where can people get the books
Thank
from?
you so much, Lola Day. So the book, The Decade After Thriving After Divorce, is available on Amazon, and it's available in print, Kindle version, and Audible. So you can get it that way. It's also available at Barnes and Noble, and actually on my website, www.thedecadeafter.com. You can also order on there. But most of the stuff just comes directly. Amazon's it's pretty easy. And so the book is has been just I've gotten a lot of great feedback, and
Yeah.
it was cathartic writing it. So so Amazon, Barnes and Noble, it's on Goodreads, and then just regular on my website www.thedecadeafter.com. And then I'm available. I'm on Instagram at the Decade After, and I don't, yeah. So those are kind of the ways to get in touch. And then the podcast is relatively new. It's only been a couple of months now. 10 minutes with TM File, and it's really just topics that I think I was like, oh, that would be. I thought about that. I wrestled with that. I'll just share what I think about that, and they're quick, they're easy, and I try to use simple bullet points to kind of get the point across. But last thing before I get up, like Laura just said, the book is really has sections on you and your kids, you
Right.
and your co-parent, you and others, and then you as you grow. And then the part of you as you grow is you as a woman,
Mm,
just growing from any kind of experience, how to support other women going through stuff. So even, for my single friends, for my happily married friends, how can you support somebody going through a divorce? Not judging
right.
them, but supporting them. So there are a lot of things about growth and empowerment and just, adapting as change happens. And so, yeah,
I
I
and in the same line, I just have to mention this. I know we're like way past, but like I just want to I just want to mention that the book, yes, it's mainly for women that are going through it or about to go through it or in the process, but it's more than that. I'm married.
oh,
By the
you're
by the
so
grace of God, me and my husband will be there be together for life.
Amen. Amen.
However, I learned so much from this book, and it even helped me even appreciate other things from like my
Mm,
upbringing.
mm,
And it also helps me. I mean, I have friends, unfortunately, who are either going through divorce or just recently gone through divorce. It also helps me better navigate them too, and even helps me
yes.
be aware of myself so I don't make
Mm,
stupid mistakes or say something stupid that unintentionally or intentionally,
correct.
right? So I
Oh,
don't think this is just for, well, no, everybody should go get this book. And
oh
it's
my
not only
gosh.
for women, guys. It's not only
I've
for
had
women.
guys read it
Have the
too.
men read it
I,
too.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm just putting my own, what
Oh,
I like to call it in my language, Jara on top.
Jara. I was just going to say that. A little Jara.
But no, I really do want you guys to get this book because it really impacted me. And I love to learn. I love to learn from different things. I think you could learn from even the unseeming places that you don't think you'll learn from. So
I
I
agree.
encourage everybody to go get it. So with that being said, is there anything else you wanted to say before we wrap up and sign out?
No, it has been such a great time talking to you. This is the first time I'm seeing you face to face,
I
as a little
know.
video, but just kind of listening to your podcast, which has been just really phenomenal. I listen when it comes out on my drive in to work, and just knowing, like women out there, positive women. And it was through your podcast that I learned through one of them on a separate topic about you being a child of divorce. Yeah, and just really important. And all the stuff you said about just empowering each other, supporting each other, and being able to be aware of yourself and sensitive to somebody who may be going through something, and realizing that when change happens, that person is already dealing with stuff, piling our stuff on them doesn't help that
Not
situation.
at all.
And again, like you said, I am completely pro marriage. I love love. I am the supporter of all my married friends. And so I actually had to do a disclaimer when, like, I'm not out there because I'm thriving, and I will say that
Mhm.
thriving after my divorce. I'm not out there advocating for divorce. I'm advocating for people to work on their marriages, do what they need to do. But if a divorce happens,
Happens. Finding
how
the
do
spark, the
you
positive.
not let it change the trajectory of your life in such a way that the rest of your life you're apologizing for
Mm,
being who you are, and always
exactly.
being like, I'm a divorcee. Yes, you are, but you're more than that. And that's what I
Exactly.
will. You're more than that, and your kids deserve the best. That's the end.
Amen. Mic drop. Mic drop. All right. Lolly Taskers, I know you're listening to like, y'all need to stop. But thank you so much for joining us for another inspiring episode of Lolly Tasking. We will have the show information, and I'll definitely have Dr. Fallis's information in the show notes as well on our website. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at LollieTasker, and that's LollieTasker, or at Facebook at LollieTasking, and join our Facebook group if you want to continue the conversation. But till next time, remember you can do it too with some planning, a little bit of balance, and a dash of determination. This is Lolly Tasking.
Thanks for hanging out with us on another inspiring episode of LollieTasking. If you have any questions or topics you would like for us to discuss, please contact me via lollytasking.com, or better yet, you could just send me a direct message on Instagram at LollieTasker. If you've liked what you've heard today, what are you waiting on? Just go ahead and click that subscribe button, rate, and leave a great review on iTunes. And of course, do share with your friends. Till next time, this is LollieTasking.